as much as you can. I mean, I guess one, the sort of final thing that I want to chat about on the expense side of things is the one expense that I guess Uber can control and related to a driver is the commission that they take on every ride. Uber launched this new statement that I actually like, where I don't think it's quite rolled out yet, but at the end of the week and the end of the month, you can sort of see very clearly how much Uber is now taking, out of all of your pay. So I think it's becoming more transparent. But if you ask individual drivers, this is another probably top question or top complaint really is that, they'll say, oh, Uber takes 40, 50, 60% of every single fare, because there are rides, right, where the commission is higher and some where it's lower. But I mean, I guess to you, like, what's a fair commission, right? This is, I mean, a lot of retailers don't like paying the 30% to Apple, right? Amazon and others. But I guess to you, like, what's a fair commission? What would you tell drivers who are complaining about the commission that Uber takes?
So I think one issue to note as it relates to our commission and booking fee, et cetera, is we're also responsible for insurance costs, and insurance
Yeah.
costs, unfortunately, are very, very high in the U.S. due to a number of factors. And that's something that kind of it's consistent. It has unfortunately been increasing, even though the rate of incidents has been decreasing. The
Yeah.
cost per incident for a variety of reasons has been increasing. So it's not a strict pass-through in any way, shape, or form. But when I look at our economics, post-insurance, again, it's not a direct pass-through, et cetera. That's not how we price. We think that something in the 20% range is fair. It's less than the 30% that Apple charges, et cetera.
Yeah.
And we think that's a general number that is a fair number. What shows up as higher, but the major reason why it's higher to some extent is the cost of insurance that we have to bear as well. So I think that's something else that drivers should keep in mind.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, we work with a lot of fleet owners. We've got some great insurance partners. And frankly, this is like one of the biggest barriers to starting new fleets and starting new companies is the insurance. So I know it's expensive, but also I think most drivers, they probably aren't aware and also don't really care, right? It's sort of like I see the commission. And so it seems like the opportunity there is to sort of highlight some of those expenses, right? If Uber is taking a 35% commission, but 15% of that is actually insurance, like as a driver, it seems like it'd be in Uber's best interest to let me know. So I don't just think that, you're taking all that money for yourself, or even small stuff, right, like the credit card processing fee. I imagine that's probably 2-3% on every single fare, right? So of 20%, that's a decent little chunk there, right? So I think that seems like the opportunity there, I guess, in terms of commission.
I do think that there's a lot more that we can do in terms of transparency, communication. And I think the other factor that you point out, Harry, is like we do have a higher take on certain rides, but then we take a lower take on other rides. And generally we're optimizing for an average take.
Yeah.
And basically sometimes price goes up and down in order for us to most efficiently match a collection of possible matches to basically get as much business into our system as possible. So in that way, having this variable take rate to some extent is in drivers' interest, and it's in our interest, because it essentially increases the business at the same average take rate. And we just have to do better in terms of that communication.
Yeah. Well, and insurance, like you mentioned, right? It's a big cost. You talked about, I know Uber has been doing a lot of features around things like dash cams, and I guess even tying into safety. The sort of final thing that I wanted to end this interview with was safety, because I think this is one thing, driver safety. Really, it's one of the big areas of concern for drivers that I don't know if a lot of folks at Uber corporate are really aware of. Just how big of a concern or an issue it is for drivers. I mean, you've done some driving and delivering, so that drivers have to go through background checks. They've got to get their vehicle inspected. There's all these requirements. They get rated after every single trip. But for passengers, there's really none of that, right? There's no ID verification. You don't even have to use a real name, right? Drivers don't like that when you pick someone up in a dark alley at 3 a.m. and they've got a fake name, some joke name, right? It can be seem a little sketch. Seems like a bit of a double standard. So, I know Uber is investing in some areas like dash cams, but I'm curious how you're thinking about driver safety and, what more Uber could do there.
Yeah, I think safety in general, it is a very, very, very significant area of focus for us and investment for us. And you're absolutely right, which is it goes both ways, right? You want riders to feel safe. You absolutely want drivers to feel safe. they're on the road a lot. It's
Yeah.
often
Well, I
late
think
night, etc.
drivers go through, you have to do a selfie check as a driver every once in a while. I think the safety on the driver's side is pretty extensive. I think the feeling for drivers is like, we go through all this, passengers don't have to do anything. I don't know, maybe a background check on every single rider who gets in your car is asking too much, but is it too much to ask some of them to verify an ID, to use a real name when they get into your car, or the rides must be under the account holder? Because it's sort of like the wild, wild west right now when it comes to, those
And
things for passengers.
and I think all of those factors are factors that we're looking at. And I'll give you
Hmm.
one example, which is if you're not using a credit card that's verified, or you're using, for example, a gift card, right?
Hmm.
We will now actually force you to show ID, because we want to make sure we know
Yeah.
what that person is. So we are absolutely kind of looking at situations that have an increased probability
Yeah.
of something happening, of being less safe for the driver, and we are systematically actioning those issues based on actual reports that we get in terms of safety
Yeah.
and incidents. So this is something that's super, super important for us. And the balance is, if you ask for background checks, et cetera, on riders, you're not going to have any riders. You're not going to have any business.
Sure.
So this is something that we are very
Right.
focused on, and we're looking at actually what's happening and taking on the
Yeah.
most potentially fraught circumstances, and we
Got it.
are raising the safety level and the requirements on those circumstances. This is super important for us. Like my goal is for Uber to be the safest transportation platform on earth for
Hmm.
drivers and riders, because ultimately long term is the right thing to do, short term and medium term and every single day and night.
Yeah.
But long term is good for business. If you feel safer driving for Uber, you will tend to drive for us before you drive other platforms.
Yeah.
So it is the right thing to do. It's a big focus, but it will be great for business long term.